Welcome to B2B Sales Trends, the podcast dedicated to sales leaders in the B2B space, where we share conversations about innovative and successful sales transformations to keep you up to date on the latest trends. This podcast is brought to you by Global Performance Group.
Welcome yet to another fabulous episode of the B2B Sales Trends podcast, my lovely people. The show that brings you hacks, tips, thought leadership to the topic of B2B selling. My name is Kendlbacher, and today I have with me Nirav Sheth from Pure Storage. Nirav is the VP of Global Sales Engineering. Welcome to the B2B Sales Trends podcast, Nirav.
Harry, thank you so much for having me. Really excited to be here.
Fabulous. Nirav, tell us a little bit about yourself to kick this off, about your role at Pure Storage and the types of customers and teams you support. That will be fabulous.
Yeah, absolutely. So super excited to be here. And here at Pure, I lead, as you'd mentioned in your introduction, our global sales engineering team. So it's a team of about 750 or so folks around the world. I've been with Pure for approximately a year and a half, and our teams serve the entire spectrum of our clients for the entirety of our portfolio. So from startups and kind of, smaller organizations that are maybe just kind of emerging all the way to some of the largest customers in the world. Pure has approximately 13,500 accounts or customers that we serve around the world, all, basically B2B. And our SE team engages and connects closely with those customers around the world, as well as our valued partners that engage and, are a very critical part of our sales motion with these customers.
Fabulous. You've shared that you're looking obviously after the solution engineers within your organization. That role has changed and evolved drastically over the last few years. From your perspective, how has that role changed, especially in that complex enterprise sales environment that we're under?
Yeah, I mean, I think, it's both kind of specific to, our organization's evolution as well as broadly, what I've seen across, different organizations I've been a part of, right? I mean, I think a lot of times when organizations start out, they look at that SE role as, a very technical orientation, somebody that is there to, provide demo engagement, demo support, maybe proof of concept engagements, and, let's just, call it speeds and feeds and kind of the technical, related conversation. But I think as most organizations mature, and certainly as Pure has matured and other organizations I've been a part of matured, you start to really introduce the sales component of sales engineering into the title or solutions component or, whatever the nomenclature might be. When I was at Google Cloud, the nomenclature for this role was customer engineering. And I think therein kind of lies a recognition that while, yes, technical leadership, technical excellence, and understanding the portfolio that we're taking to market inside and out is super critical, but is as much about really understanding and tying it back to what is the customer looking to achieve and how does this technology investment ultimately enable the customer to fulfill some kind of, true differentiation outcome, et cetera, et cetera. And so I feel like as most organizations mature, the role of that SC function matures from, being primarily called in, for technical related engagements into something that is truly, an advisory, a consultative kind of engagement, connected to a customer through the life cycle of their journey with the organization.
Let's dig a little bit deeper into this. Obviously, beyond demo, beyond technical orientation and so forth. What, in your view, what are the sales engineers, strategic value across the whole sales process that they're providing? What is it that, in your opinion, that they should be doing in a way to drive the sales process?
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, and again, it's kind of agnostic of which organization, but ultimately, a customer looking to make an investment, in your organization is looking to make that investment because they're, looking for some kind of outcome, from that investment, right? And so, whether you're a software B2B SaaS provider, whether you're a platform capability, infrastructure, whatever it is, it doesn't really matter, right? And so I think, what is really important is to tie that investment that they're looking to make into technology and really having a much better understanding of what is the customer looking to achieve. And so, as an example, right, obviously most organizations are evaluating and trying to understand, what is it that they want to do as it pertains to artificial intelligence, right? Just as a hypothetical, right? A very big focus area for most boards around the world. It's pushing a lot of, interest and momentum around, hey, organizations have to think about what's their AI investment plan, and, what's the strategy around it. Now, if you're an infrastructure provider or a data platform provider like we are, if we're not careful, we end up basically solutioning the technology side of it, right? Customers look to, hypothetically, and something that we've, done with a major financial client very recently, the customer's looking to develop an AI powered, fraud detection solution. And that fraud detection solution requires X amount of infrastructure, Y amount of GPU compute, and blah, blah, blah. Right. And so I think in the model of yesteryear, the engagement could be, if we're not careful, oh, well, the customer knows their requirements. Let's sit down and, sort out, what does that look like for us? And, how do we kind of help them test that on our platform? And how do we kind of showcase the differentiation of what we have versus what somebody else has, right? I think in the model of where we are now, right? And when I say we, I mean broadly the industry. I don't think it's appropriate just to limit ourselves to that, right? Ultimately, what is that fraud detection solution going to be leveraged for? What's the global distribution of that solution? What is the business outcome, of that solution? What does, milliseconds of advantage of identifying fraud mean in terms of business impact? When a customer thinks about their investment ROI, are they looking to make a significant upfront investment? Is it something that they're going to continue to invest in over time? That data that they're, going to be building models around, is that something that could be applied, into other use cases as well? Does that then turn into some kind of, I'm just throwing out a hypothetical, upsell, cross-sell opportunity for, some kind of credit monitoring service that the financial institution might want to then offer as a result of, what they're sensing and, monitoring in terms of the fraud detection. If the infrastructure, and the data platform can be leveraged in a particular way, is it flexible enough to be, accommodative to the customer in other ways? And so my point here is, one specific use case could spawn a very significant consultative engagement and discussion to help a customer really think through what a broader AI strategy is. And I feel like, this role of the SC community is the right community and the right role within a provider to go off and lead those discussions, right? And so that's what, I think about, like, how do we make sure that we're not relegated to, hey, the customer has an RFP, they kind of understand what their technical requirements are. Now let's go and solution the right thing from us, and elevating ourselves into, hey, let's really sit down and understand what they're looking to achieve and really think a little bit bigger about the AI strategy and how do we be a true, advisor and engage them on that entire journey, even though right now there's very specific use case, might be, a particular fraud detection solution as an example.
We had a very similar experience. Just very recently, we were choosing a platform to support our systems, and we've identified a number of different players. And an SE comes on board, and typically most of those suppliers or potential suppliers were explaining the tool, right? But one of them really stood out by still explaining the tool, but really signalizing support, asking the types of questions that got us to consider unconsidered needs, underappreciated needs that we didn't appreciate could impact our business, has shared a really nice use case that was, funnily enough, specific to our industry and really could demonstrate some business impact. Now, we chose that particular solution. And, beyond everything that you have described, I think it also signalizes a lot of credibility here, that we're not just techies, right? And to explain things, but we're interested in how do we create business outcomes for you, my dear client. I think that's a very good example.
Yeah, that's by the way, if that person is looking for a role, let me know. I'd love to hire that person or that's sold to you, right? But and
Right.
if I think about, kind of what you just laid out, I mean, that was exceptional discovery by that SC, right? That SC wasn't relegating themselves to, hey, let me demo the tool for you because you kind of know you need this kind of solution, but let me
Mm,
go in and really discover your requirements and make this opportunity very relevant and build the appropriate level of confidence in
yeah,
you because you might be evaluating a number of different competitors. And again, I think that SE role, is the right role to
yeah,
go off and drive that. And I think the flip side of it, right? Most of the industry, in some way, shape, or form, is pivoting into a consumption model. If
yeah.
that SE that sold that solution to you, um, did that level of heavy lifting and homework up front, my gut tells me that they either directly or they'll do a transfer of information and somebody from that organization will continue to stay connected to you in the hopes that you continue to invest with them and grow your footprint with them because you feel very confident that they understand your business. And
Yeah.
tomorrow morning, they might have something new that they could offer you. And they would know that because they've actually done the homework up front to truly understand your business.
Yeah. I think it's a game changer completely. How do you scale this? So let's say we have this super SE individual that you and me have just described. And so how do you scale this? You have 700 to 800 people who are supposed to do it all in the same way. How do you ensure that? That must be really tough.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a couple of different ways to look at it, right? And again,
Mm,
kind of agnostic of Pure or other organizations I've been a part of, right? You
mm,
typically start to see an evolution as a portfolio evolves for a company into
mm,
kind of account roles and
mm.
specialist roles, right? With the
Yeah.
expectation that the account SC role is going to have the breadth and a certain level of depth across the entirety of the portfolio. And then
Mm,
potentially you're going to have specialist roles that are going to have, let's say, PhD level of expertise, but in very specific areas, right? And so, one thing that I've seen certainly in my journey is that balancing act between, hey, the account SE has
mm.
an expectation that they can represent the entirety of the portfolio. But if something's going to get super, super, super deep, they might have that kind of skill set in one area, but it's probably unreasonable that everybody can have that on all areas of a company's portfolio. And thus, it kind of necessitates, this whole kind of perspective and focus on the specialist organization. Now, I cited AI as an example,
Mm,
but we have specialist teams in AI, and many of them have practitioner backgrounds. We have specialist
right.
teams in cyber resilience and security. And again, many of them have more in the way of industry backgrounds than data platform backgrounds, and so forth and so on. So I've certainly seen that. I think the other thing, and kind of coming back to your own example of this SC that did a great job of understanding your requirements, most organizations also have to go through an evolution of splitting the pre-sales focus and kind of the proactive post-sales focus. Now, I'm not talking about support, and I'm not talking about professional services. I'm talking about who's going to be there with you from that solution provider that
Yeah.
can do the caring and feeding for you on an ongoing basis. Are you enjoying the ROI that you expected to enjoy? Are you adopting the capabilities well? Tomorrow morning, as a part of your engagement with that provider, you might be entitled to a whole new set of capabilities that they've released. And the more you leverage that, the more stickier that solution becomes, right? And so the other, I think, natural evolution that happens as organizations mature is you start to split that technical pre-sales and post-sales proactive focus.
Mm,
And many organizations set up either the whole concept of a customer success engineering team or a technical account management team. Again, different organizations might have different terminology. And certainly we've done that recently as Pure as well. So we've established and we've incubated essentially a technical account management function within our SC community because the pace of innovation that we have at Pure is amazing. Every month, we are releasing innovation to our customers. And, we have a very simplified licensing model. We're not nickeling and diming our customers. So if our customers are on our platform, pretty much anything that we're coming out with, they're entitled to, right? But somebody needs to go off and have that technical engagement with the customer, say, hey, we have this new cyber resilience capability that you're entitled to, or, let's get it adopted, or let's help you understand it better, or whatever, right? And so, we've created kind of this new team to go off and have that proactive, ongoing engagement with our customers in partnership with the account owner SEs, so that those customers can constantly enjoy a stronger ROI from the investments that they've made with us, and ultimately, hopefully, that they continue to grow and expand their investments with us as well. So I think that's another critical scaling mechanism that I've seen through kind of my journey as well.
I love the proactiveness behind that. That's what really ties a customer to you and your platform and what you're providing. That proactiveness. Hey, there is something new. Let's take a look. Can we integrate that with what you're currently using? That's what customers need. I really like that idea, and that the fact that you even dedicate a team to that proactive outreach. That's very cool. That's very cool. You're certainly a thought leader in that respect, no doubt. You've touched a little bit on something that's interesting. Obviously, the SEs and the AEs, so the sales engineers and the account executives, they have to have some sort of relationship, of course. And a lot of the times we hear that relationship or that collaboration is really challenging. We see that when SEs and AEs are truly in sync, the customer really feels it. So in your opinion, what does strong collaboration between an SE and sellers look like in reality and in practice?
Yeah, it's funny, and I'm going to cite a little bit of a personal analogy. I mean, I think it's actually very much akin to personal relationships that we have that are either healthy or not healthy, right? And if I anchor on, what are healthy, what are traits of healthy relationships? It's trust, it's confidence, it's mutual credibility, it's open communications, it's proactive communications, it's really understanding each other's strengths, right? And I think all of that applies to healthy AE-SE relationships, right? There are things that, the AE on an account might be very naturally very strong in. There are things that the SE on the account might very naturally be very strong in. And how do they leverage each other's strengths ultimately to deliver the maximum amount of value for, the customers, right? And, how do they make sure that they're proactively planning every customer engagement? How do they also create healthy tension with one another, right? Because, one of those roles might be a little bit eager to close a deal, right? And, the other role might be, hey, well, if we take a little bit more time, we might be able to solution this in a little bit of a different way, or we might be able to create a bigger opportunity. But for that to happen, there has to be trust, right? And so I'm also always a big fan of having a little bit of healthy, positive tension between those two roles, but that begins with having a tremendous amount of trust and mutual respect between those two roles. And I think I've seen this, and it's not so much so at Pure, but I've seen this in my history. I've seen scenarios in organizations where the SC kind of feels like, they are, the number two and the AE is the number one. And I've seen organizations and, kind of at like what I see certainly at Pure, where it's viewed as kind of a level playing field, and that there's not a number one and there's not a number two, right? You have both the AE and the SE truly co-owning a relationship and truly co-owning an account. And as a result of that, you see them both be very, very active. And I've seen many times, even in my short tenure here at Pure, that perhaps maybe an AE has moved on to a different team or a different segment, or potentially has transitioned externally. Well, guess who's actually, carrying the entirety of the relationship forward until a new AE comes in? It's actually the SC, right?
Mm.
And certainly I've seen that on the AE side, if they've got the SE background, that they're trying to do the same. And those, to me, I think are the best relationships, right? Where they can actually also step into each other's shoes because they have that level of intimacy and that level of understanding of the account strategy, right? And so, I feel like maybe underpinning all of that is a very strong sense of mutual ownership on the
Mm.
success, of the account or the accounts that the AE and the SE are serving.
Yeah. Interesting. And there's certainly an opportunity to really turn these insights that SEs are gaining from their conversations into, really influencing the deals. And SEs often have a unique view into both the customer environment and their internal buying processes and dynamics, shall I say. How can SEs really translate that insight into real influence on that deal? What have you seen there?
Yeah, I think I've seen this in a couple of different ways. I mean, most organizations, are not in a scenario where there's a, one single decision maker that's going to be making, the decision on an investment, right? Typically there's multiple stakeholders in a customer that are going to be involved and engaged in the decision making process. And some of them might be in the functional area where that investment is being made. And some of them are going to be, probably sitting outside of that functional area as well, of where the decision is being made, because maybe it's, going to be reviewed by the CFO or whatever, right?
Right.
And so I think that, making sure that there's multiple touch points in an account by the SC is important. This is where SC leadership is also very important. Is the SC leadership serving as a sponsor or, enabling the provider to get more in the way of executive access in some way, shape, or form within that customer's environment? Because again, there's probably going to be multiple reviews and multiple sign-offs on a particular investment decision. Going back to that fraud detection example, the SC inevitably is going to be in, potentially some conversations that could spark, dialogue on more opportunity. And so how the SC can bring that to the forefront, not so much so to, let's say, expand a particular opportunity, but
Mm.
to provide that as additional insights to deliver the confidence to the organization that, hey, this provider really understands your needs. No different than, what you were sold, right? Where that
Mm.
SC really came in. I think that SC also will have a tremendous amount of credibility, whether they've done something similar in a different account or if they
Mm.
can highlight relevant references, because
Yeah.
all of us are in some industry, right? I'm in high tech,
Yeah.
somebody else might be in financial services, somebody might be in healthcare. And ultimately, the more relevant references that, that the SC team can provide for that particular industry, the
Right.
better. All of that, I view that as kind of very relevant and important on the pre-sale side. But there's also the post-sales component, right? That ongoing caring and feeding. So we have an ongoing engagement model with our customers. And in that engagement, we're often uncovering, new priorities, new initiatives, new investments that the customer might be thinking about. And how can we quickly, follow up and follow through as a broader account team with that customer to, number one, make them more successful or help them be more successful. And then number two, obviously create more opportunity for yourself. There's been many, many instances where, as a part of this ongoing review we're having with the customer, we realize that, hey, they're entering a new quarter, or they're entering a new, planning cycle. And now all of a sudden, they've elevated the priority on a particular, investment area. And that's going to lead to more requirements, from somebody, whether it's us or, one of our competitors or whatever. And so that ongoing, technical caring and feeding, if done well, not only enables the customer to obviously enjoy a stronger ROI, but
Right.
it creates potentially new opportunity for the organization.
Thank you, Nirav. That's very interesting insights on that. The last question, unfortunately, we're out of time. The last question I always ask during each podcast is, what are the top 3 qualities that elite salespeople have to possess to really execute a good sales process nowadays? In your case, I want to massage that question a little bit to what are the top three skills and behaviors that sales engineers need to really possess to execute the right process for them? So what are the top three things they need to be doing exceptionally well, in your opinion?
Yeah, that's a great question, Harry. So I don't know if it's necessarily the top three, but these are three very important, characteristics and traits I look for. And I'm very humbled and very fortunate to be able to work with some of the best and smartest SEs in the world. And these are definitely things that I see day in and day out, right? And so not in any particular order, but I think one big bracket is really around kind of curiosity and, and having the appropriate mindset around discovery. Again, it goes back to the example, that you cited on a recent investment decision that you made, right?
Right.
Is the SE there to really understand broadly what the customer is looking to achieve, the customer strategy, how the business investment or how the technology investment ties into, their business strategy, et cetera, et cetera. So I think that's kind of one big area. I think another big area is, call it communication skills, but ultimately, the ability to inspire.
Hmm.
How can the SE drive the inspiration within their client organizations? Because ultimately, while it's a customer, it's individuals that are making the decision. And are we delivering the appropriate level of confidence to those individuals that they are making the right decision when they're moving forward with something that you're doing, right? Are we helping them in their career journeys? Are we helping them in their business objectives? Are we helping them, drive differentiation within their organization because of this technology investment that they might be making? And I think that these two things kind of go hand in hand because you have to really understand the customer's environment and their
Hmm.
business strategy really well to turn around and inspire them and make them feel confident and excited and motivated about, hey, you know, you're making sure that they're making the right and the best investment with you,
Right.
right? And I think the final piece, and again, not in any particular order, but you know, whether it's customer engineering, sales engineering, systems engineering, solutions engineering, engineering is in the title. And
Yeah.
so, having the appropriate, technical depth and excellence
Yeah.
and aptitude obviously is going to be important because by design, this is a distinct role from an AE role. And thus, there will always be expectation that this role is going to be deeper, into the technical details of the portfolio that you're representing. And so I think that, making sure that they've got not only that aptitude and that depth, but that kind of constant commitment to learning and growing, right? Because no OEM, no provider, certainly not Pure, nobody is stagnant, right? Every month we're innovating. And so that, especially that SE role, that individual in the SE community has to feel, that level of ownership and commitment that they're investing in themselves and growing and learning and making
Right.
sure that they're constantly engaging with the latest and greatest with their customers.
Right. And typically, the default, unfortunately, is a lot of the times the especially in the SC community. Okay, I've got to be technically on an excellent level, but the softer things, if I could call it this way, the discovery, the curiosity, the ability to inspire, the constant commitment to learn, as you have shared, those are sort of a lot of the time gets overlooked, and I think they're so vital, really, as a combination to drive the right customer outcomes and the outcomes for your organization 100%. Very interesting.
Um,
Uh,
eh, Harry, as
okay.
we wrap up, and I
Yeah,
don't speak over you, if I can actually cite a personal example of an
do it,
experience that I
please.
had, if
Great.
that's okay, for the listeners.
Yeah.
So there was a time, and this was probably 7 or 8 years ago. I can't remember exactly the date, but I leased a vehicle and I leased a vehicle for my father. And we basically, this was exactly at the same time, right? So I kind of surprised my dad and I did something for myself. And so we initiated two leases at pretty much the same time. And they were different brands and thus they were different dealerships, right? And so the experience for lease number one, which was more for my father, basically after we took delivery of the vehicle, we didn't hear from that dealer again up until about 90 days ahead of the expiration of the lease. so that they could be back in touch and say, hey, what would you like to do? So that was
Right.
kind of experience one.
Mm.
Experience two, the moment we took delivery of the vehicle, that dealership and the broader manufacturer were constantly in touch. They were asking us if there's anything that they could help with as we get acclimated to the vehicle, the electronics, whenever they would do software updates, we were being notified. We would
Mm.
constantly be messaged by them, and in terms of, hey, we have this new vehicle, would you like to just do a test drive, or hey, we'd like to tell you more about this, or here's some special offers on swag for the brand, etc. And so when that lease expired, it wasn't an event, right? It was an ongoing relationship and an ongoing journey. And so just by default, your mindset is, of course, I'm going to release again with this
Yeah.
dealer. And for the first one, it was interesting. We released for my father. It was actually ended up being the same brand that we released for him, but we ended up going to a different dealer, right? And so I cite this example because I think that in a B2B kind of mindset, this is what we deal with day in and day out. And this is no different than actually the example that you cited when you were thinking about making your purchase decision, right?
Yeah.
The more ongoing caring and feeding that we're doing of our customers, I think directly influences, the ongoing value that they're going to drive, and ultimately the ongoing value you as the provider will be able to enjoy from that customer. And it sounds very basic, but I am absolutely surprised, across the industry, how little I actually see it done well.
Mm. It's first of all, thank you for sharing an excellent example. And for me, it's really when you explain that, it's really about the customer experience. And the experience starts with the second the initial deal is signed, and really that's when the renewal, for lack of a better word, will start by providing ongoing value. So, as you said, that it's not an event 90 days before the contract is up, but it's an ongoing process of providing value to the customer, and I think that adds to the customer experience. And then the easiest thing is the renewal will happen automatically, right?
That's
Because they
right.
look back and say they've been great, right?
That's right. And in high tech, my personal feeling is the SC function is
Mm,
probably the most mission critical function to that
absolutely,
ongoing experience because it's
absolutely,
tech.
absolutely, absolutely. Couldn't agree more. Nirav, unfortunately, we are out of time. Thank you. I know our listeners very much appreciate your insights and your thought leadership. Thank you for taking the time.
Thanks for having me. Really appreciate it. Have a wonderful rest of the day.
Thank you. My lovely listeners, 2 calls to action for you. Go to the B2B Sales Trends.com, subscribe and share this episode or others with people you think this will be helpful to, or go to our YouTube channel, B2B Sales Trends Podcast, or go to globalperformancegroup.com and try out a new tool that we are sharing with everybody called the Win Rates Calculator. How your current win rate ranks compared to others in your industry. Until the next episode, my lovely people, look after yourselves, your loved ones, and of course, your B2B customers. Bye-bye.